I never thought the worst and best moments of my life could happen on the same day, but they did. First, I found out my wife was cheating on me. Then I won $1 million. And somehow, that wasn't even the most shocking part. It started like any other Wednesday. Alarm at 7:30. Coffee at 7:45. Kiss on the cheek by 8 o'clock. Though that morning, her lips barely brushed my skin. I should have known something was off, but I didn't. Or maybe I did, and I was just pretending not to. By 10 a.m., I was at my desk, answering emails I didn't care about and sipping coffee that had already gone cold. That's when the text came in. Call me when you can. It's about Anna. From a friend I hadn't heard from in months. Anna, my wife of 4 years. My best friend of 6. The woman I thought I knew better than anyone. I called him. He didn't dance around it. I saw her. Yesterday, downtown, with someone, holding hands. They kissed. Silence on my end. She looked happy, like really happy. I hung up. No anger. Not yet. Just stillness. That slow, heavy stillness right before a storm hits. I stared at the computer screen, but couldn't read a word. My hands were shaking. I went home early. She wasn't there, but her laptop was. And curiosity, or maybe instinct, led me to open it. She had forgotten to log out of her email. It took 30 seconds to read enough to shatter everything I thought was real. Messages, photos, plans, not just some drunken mistake. A full-blown relationship, intimate, ongoing, deep, with a man I'd met once, briefly. She had introduced him as an old friend. At 3:42 p.m., I poured myself a drink and stared at the wall. At 4:10 p.m., I checked a lottery ticket I had almost thrown away. Matching numbers. All of them. $1 million. I laughed. I laughed so hard I almost cried. There I was, on the day my marriage officially died, holding a piece of paper that could change my life forever. And it did, but not in the way she hoped. Because I didn't tell her. Not yet. Instead, I waited. I let her come home. I let her lie to me with those eyes I used to believe in. I told her I loved her. One last time. And then I prepared for the quietest, cleanest revenge anyone could imagine. The night after I found out, the silence in our apartment was deafening. I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft sound of her breathing next to me. She had no idea I knew, no idea what had just happened. And for a brief, terrifying moment, I almost convinced myself to let it go, to pretend I hadn't seen the truth. But that wasn't who I was. Not anymore. I couldn't even look at her the same way. The woman who once made me feel like the luckiest man alive, my partner, my confidant, was now the stranger lying next to me. It wasn't just a betrayal. It was the fact that I'd been so blind. I had been living a lie, one I'd been feeding myself, thinking that love was enough to hold us together. But she had taken something from me that I didn't even know was missing: trust. I waited until morning before I did anything. I had to be calm, collected. I had to think about my next steps carefully. Because if I made a move without thinking it through, it would be over before it even started. It wasn't just about the betrayal. It was about everything else. The $1 million ticket, for example. How the hell had I managed to win a fortune on the same day my life was falling apart? The universe had a twisted sense of humor. I'd give it that much. I still didn't know if it was some cosmic joke or a stroke of luck. All I knew was that, at that moment, I felt like I was standing on the edge of something huge, something that could either destroy me or set me free. She woke up late as usual, stretching, yawning, and then rolling over to kiss me on the cheek, like everything was normal. It wasn't, but I didn't say anything. Not yet. I needed her to think I didn't know, to act like the man who had no idea that everything was already crumbling around him. I had work that morning. I didn't cancel, even though I couldn't focus. I couldn't stop thinking about everything I had learned. The messages, the photos, the intimacy. I kept imagining them together, and it made my stomach turn. But that feeling of betrayal was overshadowed by something else, something I wasn't ready to face yet. At lunch, I made a decision. I called my lawyer. By the time I left the office, I was holding divorce papers. But I didn't rush home. I didn't want her to know that I was already planning my escape. Not yet. I had to play it cool. Instead, I went to a cafe. I needed to clear my head. I opened my phone and stared at the lottery ticket again, making sure I hadn't imagined it. The numbers were real. It was real. I still didn't know how I felt about it. Winning a fortune when everything else in my life was falling apart seemed absurd. I could feel the weight of it in my pocket. The $1 million check, a reminder of a new life waiting for me. But could I even enjoy it? I sat there, sipping coffee, my mind racing. I could have cashed in the check right then. The money could have been mine, and I could have walked away from everything. Her, the house, the lies. But I didn't want to. Not yet. I wasn't going to make a decision out of anger. I was going to do this my way. I went home that evening. She was already there, sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She looked up and smiled when I walked in, like nothing was wrong, like the world hadn't shifted under my feet. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. I noticed that now. I noticed everything. "You look distant," she said, her voice soft, almost apologetic. "Is everything okay?" I could have told her the truth right then. I could have screamed, thrown the papers at her, and walked out. But I didn't. I smiled instead. It was the kind of smile I used to give her when everything felt perfect, when life felt easy. "I'm fine," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Just thinking." She leaned back, relaxed, unaware of how the foundation beneath her was crumbling. Thinking about what? I wanted to tell her everything. How I knew. How I felt like an idiot for not seeing it sooner. How I felt like I was drowning in lies. But I didn't. Not yet. "I'm just tired," I said finally. "We'll talk later." And then, just like that, I walked away from her again. Not physically, but emotionally. It was the first time I had truly distanced myself from her. I wasn't sure if I would ever go back. That night, while she slept soundly beside me, I made my decision. The divorce papers were ready. I had all the proof I needed. I wasn't going to tell her yet. Not until everything was in place. She didn't deserve the satisfaction of knowing how far ahead of her I was. Not yet. But the money, that was the key. The $1 million ticket was more than just cash. It was a symbol. It was my escape. And when the time came, I would cash it in. I would make sure that every last penny was mine before she ever had a chance to take a single cent, because she had already taken enough from me. And when that day came, I would be ready. But for now, I waited, knowing that the truth was coming, that everything was about to change. I chose a cafe on purpose. Not the fancy one downtown where she might feel too comfortable, but the small, quiet place on the corner with dim lighting and stiff wooden chairs. Neutral ground. Somewhere I could speak without raising my voice. Somewhere she couldn't twist my words into something else. I told her we needed to talk. She showed up 10 minutes late, wearing that perfume I used to love and a fake smile that made my stomach churn. "Hey, babe," she said, leaning in to kiss me. I turned my head slightly, and her lips caught only my cheek. She paused, confused, then sat down. Something shifted in her expression. She could feel it, the energy, the tension. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice suddenly cautious. I looked at her for a moment, really looked, the way her hands fidgeted with her phone, the way she avoided my eyes. And for the first time, I didn't feel pain. I felt clarity. "I know, Anna," I said quietly, wrapping my fingers around the warm mug in front of me. She blinked. "Know what?" I didn't answer right away. I let the silence stretch, let her squirm. Then I pulled out my phone and slid it across the table. Emails, photos, text messages, all open, all undeniable. She stared at the screen, color draining from her face. Her voice caught. "It's not what you think." I tilted my head, almost amused. "You're going to say you didn't sleep with him?" Silence. That it was just emotional? I asked. Still nothing. That it happened once meant nothing? Finally, she whispered, "I didn't want you to find out like this." I couldn't help but laugh. "You didn't want to find out at all, Anna." She closed her eyes for a moment, then looked at me, really looked. I didn't mean to hurt you. Then why did you? I asked. My voice was calm, steady. Too calm, maybe. You had a choice. Tears welled up in her eyes, and for a second a flicker of guilt tugged at my chest. But I shut it down. I wasn't there to be manipulated. Not anymore. I didn't want to lose you, she said, almost whispering. But I love him, too. And there it was. The words hung in the air like smoke. Thick, choking, undeniable. You love us both? I repeated, more to myself than to her. She nodded. I leaned back in my chair. That's not love, Anna. That's indecision. That's cowardice. Her tears spilled over. I'm sorry. No, I said, you're sorry you got caught. She didn't deny it. For a moment, I let it settle. The weight of it. The reality. And then I stood up. Where are you going? She asked, panic creeping into her voice. To live my life, I said, without you. Her hand reached across the table. Please, we can fix this. I pulled my phone back and pocketed it. There's nothing to fix. I've already filed. Her face went pale. Filed what? Divorce. She looked like I'd slapped her. Wait, you already? I saw the messages 3 days ago. I said, this isn't sudden. This is me finally catching up to the truth. She sat frozen, unable to respond. I tossed the 20 on the table and turned to leave. And just before I walked out the door, I said, oh, and one more thing. I won the lottery. $1 million. She gasped. What? I didn't turn around. I just thought you'd want to know what you lost. Then I left, and for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt light. The door of the cafe shut behind me with a soft click, but inside my chest, it slammed like a judge's gavel. Final. I didn't look back. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't need to. Everything I'd ever needed to know was already said, and everything I hadn't said, that was mine to keep. My silence was louder than any scream. I didn't go home after that. I couldn't. The thought of walking through that apartment door, breathing the same air, smelling the same perfume on the pillows, it made my skin crawl. Instead, I checked into a hotel. Nothing fancy. Just clean, quiet, a place to breathe. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, just staring at the wall. She loved him too. Those words echoed in my mind like a cruel joke I couldn't stop replaying. I knew the truth already, but hearing her say out loud, that sealed it. She hadn't made a mistake. She had made a choice. And now it was my turn. I pulled the check from my wallet. $1 million. Crisp, perfect. I turned it over in my hands like it was a key. And in many ways, it was a key to something new. Something clean. Something mine. But I still hadn't cashed it. Why? Fear, maybe. Not of losing the money, but of what it meant. That once I cashed it, once it was real, I had no more excuses. No more holding back. No more, maybe we can fix this. No more what ifs. That check was freedom. And freedom is terrifying when you've lived in a cage for too long. I opened my laptop and pulled up the email from my lawyer. Everything is in motion, he had written. All that's left is your signature and confirmation of financial status. Let me know if you want the check included in the divorce declaration. I didn't even hesitate. I typed, don't include the check. She doesn't know about it, and I want to keep it that way. I hit send, and just like that, I drew a line. Not in sand. In concrete. Later that evening, I went to the lottery office. It was quiet. No cameras, no reporters, no fanfare. I handed over the check and filled out the paperwork. They asked if I wanted a lump sum or installments. I didn't even blink. Lump sum. Within a few business days, the money would be transferred, and with it, the life I'd never imagined I'd have. Back at the hotel, I poured myself a drink. Nothing fancy, just something strong. I sat by the window and looked out at the city, the same streets I'd walked 1,000 times. But now they felt different. Now I felt different. It wasn't just about the money. It was about me, about finally choosing me. I thought about her again, not with bitterness, but with clarity. She had chosen someone else. That was her right. But she had made her choice without respect, without honesty, and now she had to live with the consequences. As for me, I wasn't broken. I was reborn. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning. It didn't take long. The money had barely hit my account when the first message came. A simple "can we talk" from her number. No context, no emotion, just those 3 words. I didn't respond. Then came the calls. First 1, then 2, then 5 in a row. I turned my phone off. I knew what had happened. Someone had talked. Maybe the bank. Maybe a mutual friend. Or maybe she had seen me walk into that lottery office after all. Either way, the secret was out. And she wasn't the kind of woman who walked away from $1 million without a fight. The next message wasn't subtle. You won the lottery. I deserve to know what happens next. We were still married when you bought the ticket. I stared at the screen for a long time before answering. We were also married when you decided to fall in love with someone else. What exactly do you think you deserve? No response. Until the next morning. A formal letter. Delivered by courier. Stamped and sealed. Intent to file civil claim for marital assets. I opened it slowly, already knowing what it said. Her lawyers were arguing that because the ticket was purchased while we were still legally married, she was entitled to half, 50%, half of $1 million, after she had already taken everything else. My hand shook as I read through pages, not from fear, from rage. But beneath that, something colder, sharper, a kind of clarity I hadn't known I was capable of. This wasn't just about money. It was about power, control. She had lost me, and now she couldn't bear to lose the lifestyle she thought came with me. She didn't want me back. She wanted the jackpot. I called my lawyer immediately. She has no case, he said flatly, after reviewing the documents. You hadn't cashed the ticket. You hadn't even declared it. It wasn't considered a shared marital asset under the law, especially since you filed for divorce before claiming it. But she's going to try anyway. Of course she will. People like her don't know how to lose quietly. And he was right. Over the next few weeks, it got ugly. She gave interviews, told half-truths to anyone who would listen, painted herself as a betrayed wife, abandoned just as fortune smiled on her husband. She cried on camera, held her hands in her lap like she was the victim. Meanwhile, I said nothing. Let her dig her own hole. Let the truth sit quietly, like a lion waiting behind the curtain. In court, she sat across from me wearing white, pearls around her neck, soft tears in her eyes. Her lawyer spoke for her, pleading her case, saying things like emotional distress, betrayal, and marital obligation. I said nothing, but my lawyer stood and presented every text, every photo, every time-stamped message, the date of my lottery ticket purchase, the date I filed for divorce, the date she was seen on camera, hand in hand with a man she claimed to also love. The judge read in silence, then spoke 2 words that hit the room like a hammer. Claim denied. She didn't cry this time. She didn't say a word. She just sat there, stone-faced, as the truth settled in. It was over. Outside the courthouse, the air felt lighter, brighter, like the sky itself had been holding its breath and was finally allowed to exhale. She had lost. But I hadn't won just because of money. I had won because I stood my ground, because I didn't let her rewrite my story, because I finally remembered who I was, who I'd always been beneath the love, the lies, the betrayal. And that was priceless. It had been 3 weeks since the court ruling, and for the first time in a long time, the silence of my life didn't feel like emptiness. It felt like peace. The money wasn't burning a hole in my pocket like I'd feared. I wasn't buying cars or penthouses. I wasn't throwing parties or booking private jets. Instead, I booked a one-way ticket. Nowhere glamorous. Just away. I ended up on the coast. Warm sand, salt in the air, and a breeze that reminded me of what it felt like to breathe deeply. I rented a small cottage near the cliffs, just enough space for myself, my thoughts, and the sound of the ocean every morning. It was quiet, honest, and mine. I started reading again, writing a little, running along the shoreline, before sunrise. My phone barely buzzed. The world back home felt far away, and I wanted it to stay that way. One afternoon, I stood on a cliffside path, the sun melting into the horizon behind me. The sea shimmered with orange and gold, like it was burning slowly in the distance. I took a photo. No filters. No captions. Just beauty, raw and unfiltered. I meant to send it to an old friend from college. I sent it to her instead. Anna. As soon as I realized, I stared at the screen in disbelief. Damn it. Too late. Message delivered. Read. For a few moments, there was nothing, just the gentle hum of the sea and the wind tugging at my shirt. Then a reply popped up. Is that where you are now? I didn't answer. A few minutes passed. It's beautiful. Still nothing from me. Then, you look happy. Or maybe just free. I sat down on a bench near the path, the phone heavy in my hand. I thought about what to say, if I should say anything at all. But then I realized I didn't know her response. Not anymore. Still, I typed out one sentence. I am, and hit send. That was all she got. Just the truth. No anger. No sarcasm. No invitation. And for the first time, she didn't respond. I put my phone away and looked back at the water, letting the sun paint gold on my face. This wasn't revenge. This was closure. And the beauty of it all? I hadn't even meant to send it. I wasn't looking for anyone. Honestly, after the divorce, it felt like something inside me had gone numb, like a frozen lake with cracks spidering across the surface. I learned to live without noise, without love, without pain, just on autopilot. One weekend, I found myself in a sleepy resort town a few hours outside the city. I hadn't planned it. I just needed air that didn't smell like her perfume or our old apartment. The sea breeze was cool, the kind that carries salt and silence in equal parts. I wandered the coast, camera in hand, trying to remember what it felt like to notice beauty without tying it to someone. That's when I saw her. She was sitting on a wooden bench near the edge of the cliff, reading a book in the fading sunlight. Her hair danced in the wind, dark brown, almost black, big amber eyes. She wasn't looking around like she wanted attention. She was simply there, as if she belonged to the sea and didn't care who saw her. I raised my phone to snap a photo of the horizon, not of her. But when I looked back down, I realized I'd accidentally sent it. To someone. I tapped the message icon. It was her. I didn't even remember saving the number. We'd exchanged maybe 3 words earlier at the cafe. She was a barista. I'd said thanks. She smiled. Now I had just sent her a photo of the ocean, completely by accident. A few minutes later, a reply lit up my screen. That's my favorite spot. I hesitated, then typed back, "You come here often?" "Only when I want to feel real again." That's how it began. We met again that evening. No plans, just a walk down the beach. Her name was Laura. She talked like she knew exactly what hurt was, but didn't want to show it. She asked me strange questions about fear, about memory, about what I'd do with a second chance at life. When I told her I'd just gone through a messy divorce, she didn't flinch, just nodded like she understood. We didn't talk about exes or pain that night. We just walked, and for the first time in months, I laughed. Not a forced one, the kind that escapes your chest before you realize you're still capable of it. Over the next few weeks, we stayed in touch. I started sending her more photos, sunrises, city streets, random cafes. She replied with voice notes. Soft, thoughtful, often with music in the background. I never mentioned the lottery, or my ex. It felt sacred, like something untouched by the chaos. But peace never lasts long in my world. One evening, Laura invited me over for dinner. Her apartment was small, but full of light and the smell of cinnamon. She was barefoot, wearing an oversized shirt and humming some old jazz tune. We ate, talked, laughed, and somewhere between dessert and goodbye, I kissed her. It wasn't just a kiss. It felt like a door slamming shut behind me, and another one creaking open. Later, as we lay on her couch, tangled in silence, I noticed a photo frame on her shelf. It wasn't facing forward, just slightly tilted. I reached over and turned it toward me. The blood drained from my face. There she was, my ex-wife, smiling, younger, arm in arm with Laura. I froze. What is this? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Laura sat up slowly, her smile fading. She looked at the photo, then at me. You weren't supposed to see that yet. I stared at her. You knew her? She was my friend. A long time ago. Before everything. Before everything. What the hell did that mean? And you never thought to tell me? She nodded slowly, eyes glistening. I didn't know until you said her name last week. And by then, I didn't want to lose you. My hands shook. I stood up, pacing. The walls felt closer, the air thinner. Was this a game? I snapped. Some revenge fantasy? A setup? No, she said, stepping closer. It's just strange fate. I didn't plan this. But maybe she wasn't the only one meant to lose something. I didn't know what to say. Outside, the wind howled like it was trying to tear something loose. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every word, every touch, every coincidence. What were the odds that in all the towns, all the women, I'd end up here with someone who shared a past with her? Was it fate or was it punishment? And why? The next morning, for the first time sunlight poured into my apartment like nothing. I feel like I didn't want to run, but everything had. I sat at the edge of my bed, staring at the floor, still hearing Lara's voice in my head. She was my friend, a long time ago. Those words looped over and over, like a song stuck on repeat. My ex-wife, the woman who shattered me, had somehow been a part of Lara's life before either of them knew they'd collide again in mine. Or maybe they did know. No, that was paranoia talking, right? I grabbed my laptop and typed Lara's full name into the search bar. It felt like déjà vu, the same thing I had done months ago with my ex. This time, results came back quickly. She had a social presence, a photography page, mentions in local blogs, an interview with a gallery about her early days in visual storytelling. And in one of those interviews, there it was. I learned the value of moments from someone who used to disappear a lot. She taught me that memory is both a weapon and a refuge. The interviewer asked for a name. Laura had smiled and said, "Let's just call her E. Elena, my ex-wife." I shut the laptop. My heart pounded in my chest like it wanted out. That evening, I met Laura again. She didn't look surprised to see me, just tired, like she'd been carrying the weight of this for a long time. "You want answers," she said, before I even opened my mouth. "Yes." We sat on the rooftop of her building. The city was humming below us. She pulled a blanket over her legs and started talking. I met Elena in university. We were both studying communications, both ambitious, both broken in different ways. She had charm. People loved her. I didn't. She was the kind of person who could lie to your face and make it feel like a gift. I said nothing. We were inseparable for a year. Then she started dating someone I liked. Lied about it. Ghosted me when I confronted her. I never got closure. Just silence. And then I asked. She disappeared. I didn't hear from her again until your name slipped out of my mouth. And you said it, Elena. I leaned forward, searching her eyes. So this is all coincidence? I don't believe in coincidence, she said quietly. But I didn't plan this. I just didn't know how to stop it once it started. There was something raw in her voice. No rehearsed calm, no manipulation, just honesty. I didn't fall for you because you were hers. I fell because when I was with you, it stopped hurting. My hands trembled in my lap. Do you still talk to her? No, I haven't for years. I exhaled slowly, unsure what I wanted to hear. I was trying to untangle this web, but maybe the web wasn't the problem. Maybe it was me, stuck between two stories that had never fully ended. Later that night, I found myself walking along the same cliffside where I'd first seen her. The sky was bruised with clouds, and the sea below looked like it could swallow secrets whole. I took out my phone and opened the last photo I'd taken, the one I'd sent Laura by accident. The beginning of everything. Was it truly an accident? Or was it life? Forcing me to look in a direction I'd been avoiding for too long? I didn't have the answers. Not yet. But for the first time, I didn't want revenge. I wanted peace. It happened on a Tuesday. The kind of gray, slow-burning Tuesday where the sky feels too close to the earth and everything smells like static. I hadn't heard from Laura in a few days, not since that rooftop conversation. We both needed space. I told myself that. But space feels a lot like absence when you've already let someone in. I sat in my favorite corner cafe, staring into a half-finished cup of coffee. When I saw her, Elena, she looked almost the same, effortlessly elegant. Sunglasses she didn't need indoors, that familiar posture like the world owed her an apology. But when she pulled off her glasses and her eyes locked with mine, I realized something had changed. She looked scared. I didn't wave. I didn't move. But she walked over anyway. "Can we talk?" she asked, voice lower than I remembered. I didn't answer. I just stood up and walked outside. She followed. We stopped at a quiet bench near the tram stop. Same spot we once kissed for the first time years ago. How poetic. How stupid. "You found her," Elena said, sitting down without waiting for permission. "You knew I would." "I hoped you wouldn't." That was the first honest thing she'd said in years. "She's not part of this," I said, keeping my voice steady. Elena looked down. She was a long time ago. More than you know. I turned to her, sharp. "What do you mean?" "She and I weren't just friends," she said, finally looking up. "We were something else. For a while." The air cracked open. "You were lovers?" She didn't flinch. Briefly. She ended it, said I was toxic. I exhaled through clenched teeth. She wasn't wrong. "That's fair." I stood up. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I thought I could forget. I thought what I did to you would stay buried. But when I saw her name in the lawsuit, yes, I saw the filings, I realized it wasn't over." "You tried to sue me for money," I said, my voice colder now. "And now you want to talk morality?" Elena stood too. She looked older now, like regret aged her more than time. "I'm not here for money. I already lost that battle. I'm here because you were the only person I ever really loved." That word, love, landed like a stone in my chest. Not because I believed her, but because once a part of me did. She stepped closer. "She'll hurt you, too." I laughed, bitter and short. "Maybe, but she didn't lie to me. Not like you." For a moment, we just stood there, two ghosts in daylight. Then I turned and walked away. That night, I called Laura. She didn't pick up. So I walked, block after block, until I ended up outside her apartment. Her lights were on. I knocked. She opened the door slowly, barefoot, her hair tied up like she'd been painting again. "I saw her today," I said. "I know," she whispered. "She called me." I blinked. "What?" "She wanted to warn me. Said you'd never let go of her. That you'd compare everything. That I was her replacement." My chest tightened. "You're not." "I know," she said. "But I needed to hear from you." I stepped inside. She looked at me like I was both storm and shelter. "I'm not here to fix the past," I said quietly. "I'm just trying not to repeat it." She walked closer, touched my face. "Then stay." And I did, not because I knew what the future held, but because for once I wasn't running from a ghost. I was walking towards something real. Spring came late that year. The city had been stuck in a loop of gray skies and cold rain, like even the weather refused to believe anything could bloom again. But one morning, I woke up in Lara's apartment to find the world washed clean. The windows steamed from sunlight, birds outside sounding drunk with joy, and the scent of brewed coffee floating in from the kitchen. She was already awake, curled in the armchair by the balcony, legs tucked under her, reading again. I stood there for a moment, just watching her. No makeup, no performance. Just Laura, whole and quiet and present. And in that moment, something inside me settled. It had been 4 months since that final conversation with Elena. She'd vanished again, this time without drama. The court had closed the case. My lawyer confirmed she hadn't filed any appeals. For the first time in what felt like forever, there was silence where noise used to be. I'd sold the apartment. the one we once shared, and move into a new space. Nothing fancy, but it had windows that caught the morning sun just right, and walls that didn't echo her laughter. Laura helped me paint the bedroom. We spilled more paint than we used, and laughed like children. I kept a photo that day on my desk, her with blue streaks on her cheeks, eyes sparkling. I'd also finally cashed a lottery check. But I didn't go out and buy a sports car or a mansion. Instead, I paid off my debts, helped my little sister fund her startup, and quietly donated to a few women's shelters under an alias. Laura never asked about the money. That's how I knew I could trust her. One weekend, we took a trip to the mountains. It was her idea. Let's go somewhere with no Wi-Fi, no emails, no memories. We rented a tiny cabin near a lake. The air was thinner up there, sharper, like it insisted you breathe deeper. We hiked during the day, cooked over fire at night, and fell asleep wrapped around each other, whispering the kind of secrets people only admit when there are stars overhead. On our third morning, I woke up before her. The light was soft golden, pouring over her bare shoulder like it wanted to stay a while. I reached for my camera and snapped a photo before I could even think. She stirred. Creeping on me again? I smiled, just capturing the miracle. She rolled her eyes, but I saw the blush. You're getting poetic. Maybe I finally have something to write poetry about. She threw a pillow at me. That night, as we sat by the lake, legs dangling off the dock, Laura turned to me and asked, "Do you ever think about her?" I didn't pretend not to understand. Sometimes, I said truthfully, but she's not the ghost she used to be. Laura nodded slowly. I don't want to be your escape. You're not, I said. You're my beginning. She looked at me, eyes wide, vulnerable and brave at the same time. Then she leaned in and whispered, "Good, because I love you, and I'm tired of waiting to say it." I didn't answer right away, not because I was unsure, but because I wanted her to feel the moment stretch, to remember the weight of it. Then I kissed her. "I love you too," I whispered, "and I'm not going anywhere." Years from now, if someone ever asks me when everything changed, I won't say the day I found out about the betrayal. I won't say the day I won $1 million. I'll say it was the day I realized love isn't just what survives the storm. It's what builds something new after the wreckage. And this was our light.